The night is clear, our streets silent, but the offices of Morden Insurance are neither. Working through the night, we keep superheroes safe from the greatest threat they face: accountability and paperwork. And that must make these claims super. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I'll stick to the script. Morden Insurance, a grayscale building in the heart of Philadelphia, 10 floors tall, and as one bystander put it, unremarkable. Yet this insurance company has deep-seated roots to our nation's greatest heroes, and every day is host to hundreds of heroes and villains alike as they take care of paperwork, claims, and give accounts of their day-to-day life. As we like to say, it's Morden Insurance. It's your insurance. What makes Morden Insurance such a cornerstone of life for superheroes? As is always the answer to such big questions, it's a mundane reality of contracts and negotiations between long-dead friends. Allow me to take you first to a time before paperwork, the 1920s. It was in 1921 that the first publicly known superhero, an older man who called himself the Gentleman, was discovered. He, like many heroes after him, insisted on separating his public identity from his secret identity. Though unlike the heroes we know, his public identity was almost a secret itself. Clad in a gray overcoat and an opera mask as his calling card, the Gentleman could blend in effortlessly with a crowd, and could be present at any crime scene. Many consider this time before modern laws and regulations of the profession to be a golden era, and one can see why that belief is so widespread. A hero could be anyone in those days, come from anywhere, and exact a swift, final punishment upon wrongdoers. The Gentleman was one such no-nonsense hero, gifted with super strength, speed, and senses. His duels with early villains were legendary, to the point that some would feign having powers for the chance just to meet with him. But the Gentleman caused many incidental deaths and unjustified executions. Though some of those he fought truly had frightening and potentially world-ending powers, most were petty thieves or people with hard-to-manage powers. They often died not knowing what they did wrong. The Gentleman was not the only hero on the scene. At the time, we did not have the power rating system that's commonplace now, so it's hard to gauge the relative strength of these early heroes. Though the ones that were documented would typically fall into a B or A ranking, fairly high ranks even today. Heroes like the Jumper, Kinetoscope, and Wonderlad would no doubt assist on the front lines of hero work nowadays. On the other hand, many heroes and villains at the time would now be registered as Class K threats. Typically, a Class K threat individual is a clear threat to any human in their vicinity, and incarcerated for their own safety. One notable Class K hero was Sergeant Mustard. To quote a paper at the time, he engages in ungentlemanly conduct upon the urban field of battle, often employing civilians and hostages from the villainous offender's own family whilst combating his foes. Rarely does he function as anything other than a terror for both society and its criminals. He also poisoned and agonizingly killed, quite frankly, an inexcusable amount of people. Unfortunately, the lack of organized rankings didn't just affect those at the top end. The Jumper is one of the few documented heroes at the time who would likely be rated at a D ranking nowadays. Admittedly, his performance could have warranted a promotion to a C+ or B- ranking had he not met his untimely fate fighting a Class S villain. Much like today, not all heroes chose to fight crime actively. One hero in particular, Direct Current, pioneered many uses of electricity and technology that shaped our modern world. Wonderlad, despite his incredible strength and abilities, chose to pursue a career in film, assisting with the creation of patriotic films as war returned. Villains too reigned in those days, and without the SSPI laws of 1977, they were particularly cold-hearted. The title of villain was poorly defined at the time, used more as a slander for unsavory heroes than a criminal classification. Between this and the poor definition of what powers were and were not ethical, oftentimes villains would engage each other with no regard for civilians for often petty, personal grudges. One particular villain, Dr. Holmes, was seen as a hero, but took pleasure in the torture and murder of civilians, often young women who he rescued from paid actors. These actors were often fatally injured, and thus not paid or were executed without trial. When his grisly work was discovered in 1932, he'd been operating as a vigilante for 30 years. Hero work was seen as a freelance hobby well into the 1970s, attracting bounty hunters and vigilantes. As long as they didn't make headlines, they were allowed to work out of sight of the law. Governments around the world employed them as well, heroes becoming a dominant force in subsequent wars. This came to a head in the Vietnam crisis, or as you might know it, the Super War. Not that this was public knowledge at the time. Heroes had largely avoided serving publicly before Vietnam due to their penchant for secret identities and the government's blasé approach to identification. However, the United States government had, through the 60s and 70s, discovered the secret identities of hundreds of heroes and blackmailed them into service against the rising threat of communism. And Vietnam was where the United States drew their line in the sand. It was a bloody war. Heroes fought openly in the field, but villains fought in the canopies and employed guerrilla warfare in service of their countries. Powers were authorized to be used without local laws in mind, resulting in enormous military and civilian casualties. One hero in particular, Rising Sun, was at the center of the greatest controversy surrounding heroes in history, the Patriots Crater Incident of 1977. The United States and Russia had been experimenting on superheroes in secret, unknown to each other, using villains and scientific breakthroughs in an attempt to create a super serum. This serum, had the projects not been shut down following the war, would have been used to push existing powers to ludicrous levels in infected individuals. Rising Sun was one such test subject. When he attempted to use his trademark solar energy in a carpet bombing run, his serum-enhanced powers drew in far too much sunlight for him to reasonably contain. Millions died. Most of Vietnam is still radioactive, and worst of all for the United States, it was caught on camera in full color. The subsequent protests and tribunals resulted in the end of the Super War and the first meeting of the United Nations regarding superpowered individuals. There, they established what we now know as the Society of Superpowered Individuals, or SSPI, and mandated all individuals born with above-human potential register when their powers manifest. Additionally, villain protection laws, bystander laws, and mandatory registration were established at the same meeting. So the world changed. Superheroes lost their mystique, and the mass crisis of the 80s began. With the new laws and the memory of Patriots Crater fresh in the public mind, a new outcry began with a simple demand at its core: register with your name on public record or be labeled a villain. The protests resulted in an all-time high of crime rates and villainy, which is why many cities in the United States are considered sovereign states, owing fealty to various villains. Admittedly, this has worked out to the advantage of a few cities, but most are ghost towns now. Here, at last, Morden Insurance becomes a relevant force. In 1993, the United Nations met once again to address the SSPI's failings in the public eye, and it was determined that they would be beholden to those they inconvenienced through a new form of insurance. The SSPI would be broken into branches per country, and a local insurance company would partner with them. For the American branch of the SSPI, a hero who called himself the Patriot, no relation to the creator, lobbied for the company he founded to operate exclusively with the SSPI. The Patriot was a longtime hero, having operated through the hero protests to work tirelessly for the public good. The string of businesses he rapidly rose to prominence in is considered coincidence for all legal purposes barring pending lawsuits. But with his inroads and campaign, the SSPI soon announced that Morden Insurance would be their United States partner in 1994. Since then, we've worked tirelessly to ensure that the gap between superheroes and citizens is that much smaller. With this partnership, we've made leaps and bounds on behalf of both heroes and society, providing insurance payouts for the damages to cities and individuals while tirelessly researching ways to have our heroes operate more safely and more efficiently. Now, I can see what you're thinking, dear listener. There's exposition aplenty here, but where's the meat of this conversation? Well, let's get into it. Morden Insurance offers 3 insurance packages: the distress package, the business package, and the super package. Within each of those packages is... Hold on. This will be easier to explain with an example. Let's say that you are a super-powered individual. We'll call you Jim. Jim, you discovered your ability around age 14, a simple one, flight. After your parents, who are law-abiding citizens, registered you to have your power ranked at an official SSPI's testing location, you learn that you are considered a C-rank hero. Naturally, when you reached 18, you decided to begin working as a hero with the SSPI as a member of one of our search and rescue teams. You, along with your teammates on the squad, were responsible for evacuating civilians from a live combat situation between two A-rank heroes. You, a conscientious and careful hero, followed the approved rules for how to escort civilians whilst airborne. But during the rescue of one woman, we'll call her Mary, a dilemma arises. You spot a piece of debris from the bow flying at you at rapid speed. Unfortunately, you're carrying this woman and are still 5 feet above the ground. You decide to let her drop a few feet and evade the debris, determining that Mary will be alright, and continue your work without any other issues. After a long day, you and the other members of the squad are approved for your hours worked, sign off for the day, and get your SSPI approved transport back to your respective homes. However, during the trip, you receive a call from a man who we'll call Jacob. Jacob is a gruff-sounding man, and he intimidates you a little bit. Don't worry though, Jim. He intimidates us too. Anyways, Jacob informs you that you'll need to schedule a meeting at a place you've never had to visit before, Morden Insurance, regarding your actions during the search and rescue operation. You've heard many things about these meetings, though most heroes you've talked to have nothing but praise and appreciation for the hard-working insurance agents of Morden Insurance, whom you know are most certainly not pencil pushers and are fighting just like you to help people. Sometimes you'll hear stories about there being too much scrutiny or being out to get rookie heroes on a technicality. To those who claim this, while we can't disagree legally, we do disagree with it on a fundamental level in all of our employee training manuals. You schedule a meeting for the following day, one of your approved days off following a high-activity day of work. Let's say you live in the Philadelphia area, Jim. It doesn't help your nerves that the building is a grayscale and intimidating place, certainly. But you're pleasantly surprised when you enter the lobby. A clean place, with helpful reminders lining the walls, and always smiling staff who let you know who you'll be speaking with. The room is understandably tense as you wait. Heroes pace and review documents they have prepared, and you sit for what feels like hours. Statistically, this is a very rare amount of time to wait, and more typically you'll experience at worst a 5 to 6 minute wait time depending on your rank and priority. After 5 or 6 minutes, a kind young woman working at the desk, Sue! No, wait, she was promoted recently. Congratulations, Sue! Well, a friendly gentleman called Bill informs you that your agent is prepared to speak with you. After a short walk down the bright, well-lit grayscale halls, you arrive at the office of one Daniel Ward. Inside, you're surprised by a young man with a smooth voice, good looks, and a manner that implies proper upbringing and professionalism. It's me, Jim. I'm your agent. Well, Jim, over the next 20 minutes or so, we discuss your incident with Mary the prior day, the unavoidable reasons for the drop, and how this will impact your standing with us. Luckily, since you prevented a far worse outcome for both you and Mary, you're off the hook. No change in your premiums or the monthly rate for your first incident on the job. Congratulations, Jim. Perhaps while you're there, you get to talking about a more inclusive package rather than the standard one that's included with SSPI membership. And maybe you start a package that, with a minor deduction from your pay, will include better protection and incident forgiveness. It's a solid deal, Jim, and frankly, you'd have to be a rookie not to take us up on it. Anyway, Jim, after that refreshing and fun meeting, you make your way back out through our simple to navigate and definitely not labyrinthian offices, and go back home to enjoy your day off. However, my day would only be beginning. I would submit my findings to the C-rank administrator, Ron, who I respect and definitely am not afraid of. We'd exchange a frank but pleasant exchange, and I'd be off to meet with my next client. He'd send that report over to payments, they'd look over my report, and if I was thorough this time and didn't make an error in judgment, they'll pay the parties who need amends made and bill the SSPI. What if I made a teensy error, though? It's nothing to worry about, Jim, just a small lapse of judgment. Maybe I didn't apply the subsection regarding speed of debris while calculating the ratio of responsibility between you, the villain, the A-rank hero, and Mary herself. Well, if something unlikely like that happened, I'd have to justify my payout at the end of the week to my boss, Asterion. He may be a tough guy to get around, but sometimes he's... He's just fine. Actually, Jim, he's got a nickname in the office, the Minotaur, because some people think our halls are a little confusing, and he's literally a man with a bull's head. Well, anyways, Asterion would ask me questions about the policy that I paid out on, make sure I followed the approved procedure, and bring up any irregularities or potential issues that I may have incidentally created. Don't worry, it's not just me getting this talk. All the other C-rank insurance agents would be at this meeting too. Asterion says it's a good chance to educate everyone. Jim, listener, you know what comes next. I get the talk, then he does whatever he does to fix it. The point I'm trying to belabor is that we've got your back. No, I'm not some super insurance agent with some sort of ridiculous memory. That's Sue. You're not the gentleman. We both just have our own strengths. You help us with the big problems, I help you with the little ones. That's the core of Morden Insurance. We help you be the best version of yourself. Whether you're a hero, a business owner, or a hard-working citizen, Morden's got you covered. Maybe there's a time where we let heroes do all the lifting themselves, but you saw what happens when heroes have no support structure below them. Accidents happen. We're just around to make sure that they're small ones. And when the big ones do have to happen, we can rewrite the ending to be a little bit happier. Thank you for listening. And from all of us at Morden Insurance, it's your insurance. Hey, Nick here. Thanks for listening. If you're interested in more of this content, I recommend doing the YouTube checklist and supporting me on Patreon. Links will be in the description, along with links to my Facebook and Twitter accounts where I'll post whenever a new video is uploaded. Additionally, if you'd like your music to be featured as a background track on this show, feel free to email me or get in touch. I'd love to feature whatever you may have. So check all those things out if you're into those kinds of things. Thanks.